You've probably walked through these streets of Glasgow dozens, if not hundreds of times. But whenever you look up at the street sign, have you ever wondered where it got its name? When towns and cities come up with street names, they don't just chuck a pile of words into a hat, then pull one out and name the street that. Who said Souchy Hall Street? Sir, it's pronounced Sucky Hall Street. Well, why is it not spelled S-U-C-K-Y? No, streets always get their name for a reason. And it's usually someone's name or based on the history of the area that the street is in. So when you look up at a street sign, you might think to yourself, how did that street get its name? So that's the subject of today's video. We're going to pick 5 streets and we're going to find out where they got their name. Let's go. It's a nice dry day today. It must be because I'm in my first street, Drygate. Drygate sounds as if it should be Glasgow's least rainy street, but that's not the case at all. After all, this is Glasgow, isn't it? It gets as wet as any other street. Now the word dry in this instance comes from an old Scots word meaning straight. So Drygate means straight road. But when the medieval branding team were sitting round the table and asking for suggestions for the name of this street, and someone said, I say thee, what if we call it Straightgate? They clearly rejected that idea and called it Drygate instead. Being one of the oldest streets in Glasgow, people have been trudging along this road for centuries. Mostly uphill and mostly raining. Drygate sits near the cathedral at the core of the old city. So historically it saw pilgrims, traders and likely at least one person saying, hey fellow menfolk, wait, I think it'll be quicker if we cut through here. This looks like a straight road.
Pilgrims and traders, their boots crunching and squelching on muddy tracks, would have approached medieval Glasgow through the Drygate, one of the town's main entrances. The air smelling of peat smoke and livestock. Pilgrims clutch tokens and prayer beads bound for the cathedral, while traders lead pack horses loaded with wool, hides and salted fish. Guards watch from the gate, checking faces and goods. Inside lies noise, faith and opportunity. Through the Drygate, souls seek salvation and merchants seek profit, both walking side by side.
Today it is known for Drygate Brewery, which is quite ironic considering that's possibly the wettest place in Glasgow. I think if Glasgow ever gets a full week without rain, every Glaswegian should gather here in Drygate and say, the prophecy has been fulfilled. So in conclusion then, where did Drygate get its name? Because it was the straight road right into medieval Glasgow. Now for our second street. I can hear a bell ringing. Can you? Here I am in street number 2, Bell Street. Now, who can tell me where Bell Street got its name? I know. Yes, it's Alexander Graham Bell. No. No? I know. Yes, it's Maggie Bell. No means city. Definitely not. Yes, Tinkerbell. Bell Street isn't named after anyone called Bell at all. It's named after an actual bell. If you come into Glasgow on a Friday or a Saturday night, you'll see that the streets are heaving with people. Young party goers, pub goers, restaurant goers, and all sorts of other goers.
In medieval Glasgow, night did not belong to the people, it belonged to the bell. When darkness crept across the wynds and closes, the curfew bell tolled like a warning from heaven itself. Its iron voice rolled through the streets, and with it came a command. Taverns were to close, doors were barred, people were to vanish indoors before the final echo faded. Fires were to be smothered beneath ash. Couvre-feu, cover the fire, for in a town of timber and thatch, one stray spark could summon an inferno. But flame was not the only fear. Night bred thieves, cut pussies, and worse, shadow was their ally. And when the town gates were sealed for the night, they were sealed without mercy. If you were locked outside, you slept beyond the walls with whatever roamed there, and only a bribe may have got you back in. If the city guards found you outdoors after curfew, they would haul you home like a criminal, or lighten your purse with a fine. When the bell spoke, you had to obey.
So now you know where Bell Street got its name. After an actual bell. Think of it as Glasgow's alarm clock, only without a snooze button. Now, let's go to street number 3. I can smell smoke. Here we are at street number 3. Now, looking at that sign up there, you would think that this street was named after candles. Well, if you thought that, you'd be right. Its origin is from candle makers, chandlers, who once worked here. The rigs part meant ridges or rows, so it literally means candle makers' rows. So this whole street was once basically a medieval candle making district. It was once full of workshops for chandlers who made candles for the city, which was essential in pre-electric Glasgow.
In medieval Glasgow's candle rigs, the air was thick with the scent of hot tallow and smoke. Chandlers stood over open flames, dipping wick after wick, building candles one layer at a time, the fragile light that kept the city alive after dark. Their trade was messy, greasy, and vital. Churches, homes, and taverns all depended on their work. By day, wax and fat were weighed like treasure. By night, their candles pushed back the black. In a city ruled by darkness, the chandlers were the makers of borrowed light.
Today it's mostly modern bars, restaurants and shops, but you can still feel the trade and light history hiding in the name candle rigs. So the next time you're in candle rigs, stand still for a moment, sniff the air. You might still smell a whiff of the candle wax. Just don't let anybody see you doing it. And now for our 4th street. Oh, I just get a shiver going down my spine. Now here we are at street number 4, Gallowgate. Now this street has one of the darkest origins of all. This would have been either the scariest place to come or the most exciting, depending which side of the law you were on. Its origin comes from Gallows Road, the route prisoners were taken along to be executed just outside the city. Centuries ago, prisoners were marched along here to their execution. Imagine the streets filled with terror, the hangman's waiting, The streets are packed full of people waiting for their day's entertainment. Executions were community events. Crowds of people would come to watch the day's activities. Some would bring picnics. Officials used it as a mix of law enforcement and theatre. Hangings were reminders that crime had grim consequences. Bells would ring, drums would beat, and the prisoners would be marched along to their demise. Oh, Glasgow didn't mess around in those days. By the 18th and 19th centuries, executions had moved indoors to the Tolbooth and other places, making it less of a spectator sport for the public.
Slow, heavy gongs roll across medieval Glasgow town like a summons to judgment. The drums beat low and relentless like a heartbeat through the crowd. People remain transfixed in low murmurs as the condemned is led along the Gallowgate, boots scraping stone. The heavy creak of the hangman's rope can be heard as it sways slightly in the breeze on the wooden scaffold. Smoke from nearby fires hangs in the air like a shroud. When the drums stop, the silence is broken by the condemned's last words to God and crowd. And then the lever is pulled.
So there we have it, Gallowgate, the place where prisoners were hanged and swayed from a rope over Glasgow. Now the nearest Glasgow gets to hangings is people with hangovers who've been out in the randan the night before. Okay, now for our fifth and final place. You can smell something again. This time it's not good. Here I am at the final street, Cowcaddens. Now before you say anything, no, I did not get the subway to Cowcaddens. I walked it all the way up from Gallowgate, zigzagging up and down all the streets. And if you're not from Glasgow, that is very far, especially a man of my age. So this is Cowcaddens. The reason I showed you the sign on the subway is because I cannot find a road sign. I could see where one was, but it had fallen off. So, Cowcaddens. How did Cowcaddens get its name? When I was younger, Cowcaddens was where the STV studios used to be. But way back in medieval times, there used to be fields full of dung. So, Cowcaddens comes from the word cow, well that's obvious, and caddens, that means fields. So at one point back in medieval times, this place used to be a field full of cows. It's hard to imagine now, but this place was once grazing land outside the city centre territory, outside medieval Glasgow, and it was used as open land where animals were moved and fed and did big cowpats. It reflects how medieval borough land was organised. Towns like Glasgow had common grazing areas outside the core settlement where burgesses could pasture animals. Medieval Glasgow was much smaller than it is today, centred around the cathedral, the high street, the cross, the market areas near Trongate. Everything beyond that quickly became semi-rural. Certainly not rural today. If you stood here in the 1600s, you'd hear mooing, not traffic. Before railways and canals, livestock was moved on foot along established drove roads. Drove routes were regulated. Animals couldn't just wander anywhere. Named grazing corridors, like Cowcaddens, helped control and organise animal flow.
In the days when Glasgow was but a small borough of timber and smoke, Cowcaddens lay beyond the crowded closes, a rough stretch of open ground where cattle grazed under grey northern skies. The name itself tells the tale. Cow for beasts, and caddens, the lanes and fields where they were driven. Along the muddy drove route they came, hooves thundering, horns swaying, herded by shouting drovers with staffs in hand. This was Glasgow's countryside, Long before iron rails and city streets, this was pasture, path, and a living larder for medieval Glasgow. But today, it's a whole lot different.
Yeah, it's quite different today. Not a cow in sight. That's a Theatre Royal. Beautiful building that. Cow caddens lay along movement routes bringing cattle from the western and northern territories down to Glasgow's markets and slaughterhouses. See, I told you cow caddens had a right meaty history. So even though there isn't a field in sight now, the name cow caddens still gives a nod to its history. So there you have it. Next time you're walking through your town or city and you look up and see a strange street sign, look it up and see if you can see what its history was all about. And who knows, by its name you'll probably find out that its history is hidden in plain sight. If you enjoyed this little video about looking at street signs and you want a part 2, let me know in the comments. There's plenty more to do. And finally, just before I go, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and I would love it if you could help me out. Thank you.